Well, who would have thought that a planner would be here tonight talking at the rally? Now, of course, I want to start by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land and to their ancestors past and present. Why is Melbourne selling off its space for Apple, and what for? Will it improve our experience of Federation Square? No. Will it benefit the tens of thousands of people that come here every day to experience what's got to be one of the world's greatest civic spaces? And will it improve, in reality, the relationship of this space with our river? Or do we think it's really about some politician getting carried away with the idea that we need Apple in Melbourne to make us an international city? Yeah, I think you're probably right. In reality, it's really hard to know what there is for us and why the state government is so enamoured in inviting Apple into Fed Square with open arms. But there's one good thing that's come out of this, and that is the loss or the potential loss of the Yarra building and the construction of this Apple store has brought us together in our love for this iconic space. And I don't need to remind everyone here tonight why it's important, and that importance is in many ways intangible. It holds a place for weary tourists, for walkers, runners, cyclists, for residents, workers, festivals, buskers, and even protesters like us. There is, of course, a space and a place for commercial uses in Fed Square. Just look around and see the vibrant cafes, the restaurants, see the Curry Trust, the Ian Potter Gallery and Acme. These are all spaces that add to our experience as Federation Square as a civic and public space. We stay, we relax, and we take in what an incredible international city that we live in. But I'm at a loss to see how the introduction of Apple does anything to enhance our public experience. The reality is that the Apple store is a use that could go into any retail precinct in Melbourne and it would still be hugely successful. Why on earth does it need to be located here? Fed Square doesn't need a retail attractor to be successful. It's already a tremendous and hugely successful space. Maybe Apple should look at going into Docklands instead. There is quite simply nothing about the location of Apple in Federation Square that is central or even partial to the success of this place. With over 100 million visits since it opened in 2002 and being voted in the top 10 best public spaces in the world, Federation Square is universally adored and massively successful. I just simply do not understand why the state government thinks that bringing Apple to Fed Square is in anybody's best interests other than maybe Apple's. Now, I think we all accept that the selling off of public land for private interests isn't a new concept. But typically when this occurs, there is some analysis undertaken about what is the best overall outcome for the community. There are times when what we planners would call net community benefit is appropriate, where there's a trade-off between the disadvantages of the loss of public space, but that it is offset by other advantages. And look, I am by nature and by trade a pragmatist, and I can see that there can be circumstances where the loss or the privatisation of public land can be in the community's best interest. And a really good example of this is the loss of parkland at Royal Park, which enabled the expansion of the Children's Hospital, which has resulted in a hospital that now performs at an international level. Now, I've read that the Apple store, which is going to, of course, replace this beautiful building behind me, will result in a reduced footprint that will allow for additional public space, and those supporters say that that will be a better result for Melbourne. But my reading of the materials and what I've been able to view is that this increased public space is really designed predominantly to be the forecourt for the store itself, so I think we can all agree that that's hardly public space. And what other space is provided is heavily fragmented, it's largely overshadowed, and really doesn't present genuine value as additional space. And what I'd like to ask the state government is, where is the analysis? Where is the real information that would enable us to undertake a thorough review of the pros and cons? Good decisions are transparent. That information is shared with the community so that it can be engaged in the process and ultimately the outcome. Now, undertaking a net community benefit analysis, not a very sexy word, but needs to be said, it's central to informing our government of whether the benefits associated with Apple being in this place outweigh the costs. And I've got, to be honest, absolutely no idea if such an analysis has been undertaken, in part because there's just so much secrecy behind this proposal. But I think we'll all agree that it's highly unlikely that such a proposal or an analysis has been done, and I certainly can't find any evidence of it in the documentation that I've been able to find. What we do know is that there is huge community opposition to Federation Square being overtaken by Apple, with protests and petitions with 100,000 people online, protests, people like you constantly displaying their displeasure, letters to the editor, and even views of the local council of the City of Melbourne tell us that Apple is not welcome here. There's no doubt that there is strong opposition to Apple privatising Fed Square, and that this is being done in a way that provides little, if any, benefit to the community. So given that Fed Square is ultimately owned by the people, then the views and opinions of the people should be heard. And join with me in saying no to Apple. Thank you.
Right.